Hey everyone, and welcome back to Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here with us today because, well, we are unpacking a massive, largely hidden cybersecurity threat. We're talking about a vulnerability that's hiding right in plain sight within almost every single corporate network on the planet. And honestly, the craziest part about all of this, we literally built it ourselves.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a story that's really going to subvert your expectations. Now, Cloudflare is widely considered to be one of the most security-competent organizations on the entire internet, right? Well, after a major incident, their world-class security team expertly contained the breach, they did a massive audit, and they thought they were totally safe. But they got compromised anyway. And how did it happen? Through these tiny little credentials that they, in their own words, mistakenly believed to be unused.
Let's actually walk through the timeline of how this went down. So back in October 2023, the Okta breach triggers an immediate incident response at Cloudflare. And they do everything right. Post-Okta, they assume the attacker's access was contained, and they go ahead and rotate more than 5,000 production credentials. That's a huge effort. But then, on Thanksgiving Day of all days, a nation-state actor breaches their internal systems, specifically targeting Confluence, Jira, and Bitbucket. 9 days later, Cloudflare finally detects the intrusion. And the truly scary part here? The attackers didn't even need a complex zero-day exploit. They didn't have to defeat Cloudflare's perimeter at all. They literally just walked right in.
Which brings us to this absolutely staggering number, 4. It only took 4 missed credentials to entirely bypass a zero-trust architecture. Think about that. Cloudflare's highly capable team missed just 1 single service token and 3 service account credentials. That is it. But because nobody remembered they existed and nobody really knew what they could access, nobody rotated them.
So what exactly are these forgotten keys? Well, we are talking about non-human identities, or NHIs. These are your service accounts, your API keys, OAuth tokens, and bot credentials. They authenticate machine to machine rather than human to system. They just operate silently in the background. They have continuous, unfettered access, and yes, they are sitting inside your enterprise right now. And this brings us to a really fundamental and quite dangerous flaw in how we handle corporate security.
Section 1. Beware the ghost employee. Think for a second about your typical human checklist when a senior engineer resigns. HR immediately triggers this rigid offboarding process, right? You ruthlessly revoke their $1,000 laptop, their Active Directory, their email, their VPN access. The human is gone, completely locked out. But what about their digital ghost? Over the last 3 years, that exact same engineer spun up GitHub service accounts, API keys for your analytics platforms, Slackbot tokens, and AWS IAM roles with basically God mode permissions just to, make things work. And none of these are on HR's offboarding checklist. These invisible ghost credentials, they just run indefinitely, long after your star engineer leaves to work for a competitor.
This is what we call the visibility versus velocity problem. See, human identities are anchored to very predictable HR events with slow, highly tracked governance. Recruitment triggers provisioning, resignation triggers deprovisioning. That's a neat little process. But non-human identities? A developer provisions an NHI in literally seconds from a command line. There's no HR trigger. There's infinite life and absolutely zero mandatory expiry. So your human identity program has mature, solid governance, but your NHI estate remains this ungoverned mess operating under permanent trust. And actually, it gets even more complicated.
Section 2. The AI agent emergency.
The recent explosion of agentic AI takes this NHI vulnerability and transforms it into a full-blown architectural emergency. As the industry is quickly realizing, we have got to stop managing AI agents as simple scripts with API keys. We need to start managing them as unauthenticated employees with unlimited access and no performance review. We are essentially personifying autonomous systems and handing them permanent standing credentials.
Just think about how these agents actually operate in the wild. You've got RAG pipelines constantly reading from data lakes, workflow automations pushing data to CRMs, copilots querying your internal ticketing systems, and orchestration layers actively calling payment APIs. Every single one of these actions requires credentials to function, but unlike a predictable nightly batch script that does the same thing every time, an AI agent operates dynamically. Its non-deterministic runtime behavior makes broad permissions incredibly risky. If an internal app misbehaves, a human eventually investigates. But if an AI agent is manipulated, say via prompt injection, it acts on those credentials instantly, before anyone is even awake to notice something went wrong. Okay, let's shift gears from the technical side for a minute and look at the actual bottom line.
Section 3. The financial reality.
194 days.
Now, remember earlier how Cloudflare detected their intrusion in just 9 days? Well, Cloudflare has an exceptional zero-trust architecture. For everyone else, IBM's 2024 Cost of a Data Breach report puts the global average dwell time at an astonishing 194 days. Let that sink in. Most organizations out there wouldn't even detect an NHI intrusion for over 6 months. And here is the real sticker shock. $4.81 million. That is the average total cost for a data breach originating from compromised credentials. When a sophisticated attacker finds those old, unrotated keys just sitting there left in your systems, this is the immediate financial damage you are looking at. No joke.
But listen, there's also a hidden secondary cost that executives really need to understand here. Unmanaged NHIs signal an unmanaged operational substrate, and that triggers a material valuation discount during M&A due diligence. If your organization is private equity-backed or maybe preparing for an acquisition, sophisticated buyers are going to penalize you financially for this. Sure, your compliance certifications might audit your perimeter, but they generally do not audit your tokens. If you are only governing the visible surface of your network, buyers will absolutely discount your valuation. Okay, so we know it's bad. How do we actually fix it?
Section 4. Applying CIS Control 5.
Bottom line, we need to bring the exact same rigor to our machines as we do to our human workforce, and it really comes down to these 4 critical steps. Step 1. Inventory absolutely everything. Obviously, you cannot protect what you don't know exists. Step 2. Apply least privilege, but genuinely apply it. A simple SaaS integration shouldn't hold admin permissions on your entire cloud environment. Step 3. Set mandatory expiry and short rotation schedules, because permanent credentials, they're just a permanent liability. And finally, Step 4. Treat NHI behavioral anomalies as first-class security signals. If a service account is suddenly working from a new IP address at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, yeah, that is a detection event for sure.
And we can actually ground all of these steps directly in industry standards. Just look at CIS Control 5 for account management requirements. It explicitly covers non-human identities. It requires you to maintain a complete account inventory, enforce least privilege, disable or remove dormant accounts, and strictly restrict administrative credentials. Now, the problem is, most organizations score reasonably well here for their human accounts, but almost none have extended this exact same governance posture to their NHI state. So the final verdict here is pretty simple, but honestly, it's brutal. If you cannot produce an accurate NHI inventory, then the credential the attacker needs already exists somewhere in your estate. Continuous visibility and a meticulous, up-to-date inventory are really the only ways to contain this specific class of attack. Because that gap, that blind spot between your stated governance posture and your actual operational reality is exactly the door that attackers are walking straight through.
So, as we wrap up today, I'm going to leave you with this one lingering, provocative thought. If that forgotten credential, that invisible ghost employee, or that overly permissioned AI token already exists somewhere deep in your network, have they found it yet? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with me today on The Explainer. Go govern those machines, and I will catch you all next time.